Welcome to More Patience, More Impact, More Income, the podcast for real holistic medical practitioners who want to grow their high-impact, high-income practice without selling out. And now, here's your host, Chris Axelrad.
You're listening to More Patience, More Impact, More Income. Today, we have something a little different for you, and it's just too good to limit to one episode. Here's Chris with part one of the series.
All right, what is up, everybody? We had a really good time, man. Did a little jam, a little conversation with Mitch with his class. He does a business class at PCOM in Chicago. So we just jammed a little bit on business and what it's like to be out here in the real world and how that's different from the safe bubble of academia, where you can sit around and pontificate and think about stuff and feel really good about yourself and feel like you're really accomplishing something without actually doing anything other than thinking about something and memorizing it and, knowing it. So it's a really important thing to keep in mind that knowledge is not power. Knowledge gives us the ability to exercise our power. But knowledge in and of itself is not power. As much as gasoline is not power. Gasoline has a lot of energy stored in it, but the way you use that energy is what determines the power. And you can have a can full of gasoline sitting in your garage for years. And if you don't have an engine to put it in, then it's not going to have much power. So this is a good, that's what we'll jam on today. How about that? Knowledge versus power. So we'll talk about knowledge versus power. And I think this is where, it's really important to understand couple things here. All right, so let's talk about knowledge versus power. So how are we gonna start here? Well, let's just put it to you this way. Knowledge is like molecules, elements, chemicals. We build up these structures inside of our minds, these structures, these memories and beliefs and analytical problem solving skills and things like that. Okay. And that's really what is the sum total of our knowledge, things that we know. Power, on the other hand, power is very simply put, and has very little to do with knowledge, actually. Power is derived from emotion. Power is derived from emotional energy. Okay. Power denotes the ability to move something. Power also denotes the ability, really, the more something with power is systematic and is based on momentum, the more powerful that thing will be. And the more that something leverages, let's say, the efficient use of knowledge, the efficient and clear use of knowledge, the more powerful that thing will be. And so a person with relatively basic knowledge, who is a very astute person of action, a person with very little knowledge or a very rudimentary amount of knowledge, who has a very high level of skill, is, in my view, a lot more powerful than someone who has a lot of knowledge, but very little skill, and also very little action orientation, people who don't take action. So on that note, we can build a little grid here, between knowledge and power. And this happens in our profession a lot. People confuse knowledge with power. Now, am I saying that we don't need to know things? Absolutely not. It's really important to study, to know things, to be able to think critically, to be able to think analytically and rationally about things if we want to be able to leverage power in a way that is going to really make a difference, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of others. Okay. The more we can leverage knowledge in a systematic, efficient, rational, congruent way, the more powerful we will become, the more impact we will be able to have. Knowledge is what? It's like kind of the sum total of, I would say, learned thinking skills, right? Like I know how to add 2 plus 2. I know how to multiply. I know how to divide, right? Also, I would say it is understanding of historical narrative, right? Knowing that, 100 years ago in this country, women had just, I think around this time, had just achieved the right to vote. That's an important thing to know, obviously. It's an important thing to know in historical context so that we don't go backwards. At the same time, think about this. You don't have to know that. You don't have to know that fact about history to be in touch with a sense of justice that just very intuitively tells you, why would we ever take away anyone's right to vote that lives in our society? Why would we do that to anybody based on any arbitrary thing, whether it's their gender, their race, their height, their weight, their level of education, et cetera, et cetera? The only thing that we do have, I think, a reasonable, rational reason for limiting people's right to vote is age, because obviously we really probably don't want third graders voting in elections in this country, right? They can vote in their school elections, but when you're electing someone who can launch nuclear weapons, it's probably better to leave the toddlers and the middle school kids out of it. But any adult should be able to vote, right? If we just think rationally and reasonably about things.
If you're ready to fill your practice and keep it full without the stress and overwhelm, then get instant access to your free Autopilot Patient Attraction Playbook. Now at www.highimpactpracticesystems.com/autopilot.
So that's, to me, that right there is an interesting difference between knowledge and power. Because let's say, and let me just put this in terms of, because here's the thing, and I'll go ahead and just finish this out, and then I'll get over here. Well, actually, no, I won't. You know why? Because if I get off track, I'm going to forget what I want to say, and right now I think it's important. So to me, power comes not from learned thinking skills, but from intuitive thinking skills. Okay? Intuitive thinking skills. When somebody can be, and this is why in business, and this is something that it's just funny because I always kind of like laugh and almost, kind of baby puke inside my mouth when I hear people say that people who are good in business aren't good in clinic, and vice versa. That you have these savants that have all these clinical skills or all this clinical knowledge. They can recite the Shanghan Lun to you, but they kind of make an excuse that, oh, really, I just don't have that business sense. When someone says, I don't have business sense, what they're really saying is, I don't know how to think intuitively. to me, if you're not able to think intuitively, then you really probably aren't that great of a clinician either. So the same type of intuitive thinking skills to be able to tap into in the middle of a situation, the abilities to synthesize the things that we know into a meaningful and useful plan or decision or mode of action or whatever you want to call it. That is where we get into power. And again, we don't have to know that much to intuitively sense what we need to be doing. In fact, I would argue that the whole reason that we're still here as a species is because of intuitive thinking skills, not because of written knowledge. Primarily, intuitive thinking skills is what gets us through. I would also say that, again, power is understanding of common sense solutions, or I would not even the understanding of ability to implement. We will say rapidly and decisively. See, I'm just going to keep adding adjectives to this fucking thing, but the ability to rapidly and decisively implement common sense solutions to problems that present themselves in real time. Okay? In real time. Like life problems. Okay? The ability to rapidly and decisively implement, take action, and implement common sense solutions to problems that present themselves in real time. Knowledge would be the ability to what? Well, really, knowledge is not even an ability. Okay? I would just say knowing, memorizing, analyzing various types of solutions in the abstract, right? So again, like being able to think about like what possible solutions we might come up with and things like that. That's what knowledge allows us to do. But if we go a step further and we want to leverage that knowledge and turn it into power, the power comes from, all right, I've got these three options. What am I going to do? Okay, this seems right. Let's go. Done. Right? And I'm going to say here too, whereas knowledge is that understanding of historical narrative, power is the application of learned mistakes, and so it's the application. It's the application of it, right? And I would tell you right now, I think that when we talk about a lot of the clinical stuff that's out here that's being taught, a lot of it is very practical. A lot of it is very, very much based in real clinical experience. However, there's a lot of stuff being taught that is just pure abstract nonsense. And it's really not based on real world action. And so power leads to power. By exercising power, we become more powerful. And if you've ever seen the people that have the most power in the world, whether that power is being used for good or bad, because power is neutral. It's like money. Money's neutral. Money doesn't care how you spend it. It's like a gun. You know, a gun is just a tool. And the gun doesn't aim itself, and the gun doesn't pull its own trigger. And I don't think anybody would ever deny. I know I would never deny. Of course, I don't own a gun, and I hope no criminals ever hear this lecture and then find out where I live. But I don't own a gun. I don't want to have a gun in my house. I mean, they're dangerous. And most of the time, people actually who have guns in their homes, someone who lives in the home or someone they know that's in the home is the one that gets shot, not some home invader. So I definitely understand that. And for that reason, I just really don't own a gun. I just don't want that, in my environment. But that being said, if I owned a gun, and someone came in my house with the intent to do serious bodily harm to myself or anybody in my family, bet your ass I'm going to try to shoot them, right? To me, that is what we would call a just use of power. But it is my decision to use that power, not the power doesn't use itself. So, money doesn't spend itself. Money is fuel, and then we use it to do things that are going to empower us. We use it as a tool of empowerment, and we can empower ourselves at others' expense, or we can empower ourselves and empower others using that money, using that gun, using that knowledge.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.